Kylie King is a former mayor and dedicated community leader, passionate about creating positive change at the local level. During her time in council, she was a strong advocate for health, wellbeing and equity, and has been a driving force in championing menstrual equity initiatives. She joins us on Another Bloody podcast to share her experiences and why council support is so very important in this space. Welcome, Kylie.
Oh, pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Super exciting for you to be here. Now, we always start our podcasts, Another Bloody podcast, with a question, a would you rather. So would you rather sit in a meeting with wadded up toilet paper or be late because you had to stop and buy period products?
Oh, I think people will always forgive you if you're a little late. You can always beg for forgiveness, so I think option 2 for me.
Really? That's so interesting. I reckon I would have chosen 1. The anxiety of being late, I don't know which one would counteract for me. Isn't that interesting? Should we ever have to do that? And that's kind of why we have got you here, because really whether you're needing period products at work or whether you've picked up the wrong handbag and only got your period products in your other handbag and this handbag hasn't got them and you're dropping your kid off to sport, shouldn't there just be access to period products everywhere?
Absolutely, and I can't believe that you've been singing this message for 10 years and yet here we are. We are still needing these conversations, aren't we? And when I became mayor, a first-time councillor who became a mayor, and there were 4 women on council, which was amazing, out of a 9-person council, and one of our councillors alerted us to share the dignity. You know, it's like, oh, wow, tell us more. And that's why, as a councillor group, we thought, what can we do about the very point that you've raised, that dignity, that affordability, that lack of access. And that's why we were really determined to do what we could do to embrace the concept that you have and play our part as a caring community. It's one of our pillars.
Tell us, how did you get into council in the first place?
My background is in media as a motorsport reporter, journalism, television, radio, and then COVID hit. And I think a lot of people had the brakes on, and certainly I was covering supercars and we didn't race and we didn't report on their racing. They were doing some sim racing, which was hilarious, so the drivers were still doing that. But there was no need for television production crews, journalists, reporters and all the rest of it. At the same time, someone approached me to run for council and I thought, why would I do that? But during COVID, I paid attention. I watched online meetings and I wasn't happy with some of the behaviour of what I saw in some of the debate. And I thought, where are the women? There were only 2 out of 9. And so, like any journalist, did a little bit more research and found out that most councils, certainly in New South Wales, less than 30% of them are made up of women. And I thought, why don't you be one of them? So, yeah, put my hand up just to sort of dip the toe in the water, potentially to be elected as a councillor, and was popularly elected, and then the councillor group in our city determines the mayor, and I was approached to put my hand up for mayor, and I was horrified at that thought of being a leader. But it wasn't until someone plants that seed and says, well, you know, you've never done it before, you probably need to earn your stripes, you couldn't possibly be the mayor, that I kind of went, you know what, I don't mind having a bit of self-doubt, but you don't know me, you don't know what I'm capable of. And so I kind of got a little stubborn and dug my heels in and, yeah, came
That gives me goosebumps, right? Because you, in your own mind, would have thought all of those things, but when somebody says it out to you, you're like, no way, now I'm going to do it, right?
Spot on. And even a former councillor, I think at some stage, I may have been quoted in the media and said something on an issue that he disagreed with. And he was quoted as saying that I was a baby mayor because I was new and inexperienced. So those little stereotypes have certainly existed. And I thought, well, it's out of my comfort zone. It's doing something that I'd never done, but probably no different to your story in many ways. You know, here you are leading and being a real driving force behind something that you feel quite passionate about. So, and we find ourselves where we find ourselves sometimes, amazed that we're doing what we're doing, but so proud that we found something within to take that initial first step.
Yeah. And so where were you a councillor to? Which part of New South Wales, have you always lived in that same area?
It's in Albury City, so
right.
Albury-Wodonga, right on the border between New South Wales and Victoria. I actually grew up in Sale in Gippsland.
In Victoria?
In Victoria,
yep.
Yeah.
For those playing along at home, now I know where all the places are in Australia now because of Share the Dignity and where the Woolworths or the Bunnings is, to be honest.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
That's so true. So, yeah, just grew up in the country, wanted to get into journalism, got into radio, then television, and then I covered a fatal drowning, actually, and there were 2 survivors in the tinny that had capsized, and I remember the news director saying, well, you've got to get the footage, get the shots of, the 2 blokes grieving and get an interview, you've got to get in there. And it hit me and I thought, oh, I'm really not cut out for this. And then I filled in for the sports reporter. Well, hello, how much fun is that? What's the worst that can happen? Someone might do a hammy. So got into sport, and Albury had a position for a sports reporter presenter, and they were encouraging a female for that role. So I applied and I got the job and loved Albury, which was great. And eventually, a few years later, ended up at Channel 10 in Melbourne in their newsroom as a sports reporter. They said, as long as you're near an airport, we don't care where you live. So came back to Albury in about 2004 or 5 and haven't looked back.
Oh,
so
that's
they
fabulous.
voted a non-local really in as the mayor, but just being part of that community, a very welcoming community, and it was, I guess, my way to give something back too to a community that had really embraced me throughout my career and my life there.
Oh, that's fabulous. What a great story. How old were you when you got your first period?
I was 15, I was quite late really. Yeah. So I didn't realise that my heavy periods were an issue. I just thought everyone had that. Until I was walking between classes in high school and I was running out of puff. And I was like out of breath. I'm like, oh, I've got to sit down. And then I said to Mum, oh, God, I've got no energy. Took me to the doctor and he asked me, about my periods. And he said, how often would you change your pads or your tampons a day? I said, about 8 times. And he was like, that's not normal. And realised that I had really heavy periods, went into hospital, had to have some blood transfusion, had anemia. So, yeah, that was quite interesting. Good old Dolly magazine was about the only place you got your education when you were young.
Did your mum ever talk to you about periods before you got your period?
Not in any great detail, just, here's some products when you're ready. Okay. It was almost this rushed conversation because that's just what she knew and that's probably the way she brought up, farming family, one of 8 kids.
Where were you when you got your first period? At 15? Because all your other friends probably... Did you even talk about it? Because literally I was 13, but my friends did not talk about it.
No one talked about their periods. In fact, I remember a great memory of one of my friends having a sleepover and, she didn't even want me to see her jumping in or out of the shower or whatever. It was just a real private thing and it was just something that you didn't talk about. So my first period, it wasn't anywhere embarrassing. My first memory is, kind of waking up,
winning the lotto if you're at home, right?
Lotto. I know. Can you believe it? But I certainly spent so much time throughout high school wrapping the jumper around the waist.
Because you bled so heavily, right?
Bled so heavily and you'd sit down in class and you'd be on those awful plastic seats and you'd sweat anyway in your summer uniform.
Did you sweat in Victoria in the 2 months of summer?
In the 2 months of summer. And you'd always nervously get up just to make sure that there was nothing left behind. And
did you ever have to go to the office to get period products?
No, I just used the wadded up toilet paper.
Right.
Yeah. In those emergencies.
Because you were too embarrassed?
Too embarrassed and probably didn't know it was an option. I don't know. Did schools have products in country towns back in the day? How embarrassing asking for that. I honestly think I wouldn't have done it.
Would you do it now?
Yes. And it's so wonderful when you see it, that there's products, I play golf and the ladies have got products there, and at Albury City, we've got them in our ladies' change rooms everywhere. Our community centres have them. The vending machines that we're happy to talk about a little later on. So, yeah, definitely now. And I'm not embarrassed to ask a girlfriend. Not that I have my periods now, but, yeah, you wouldn't be embarrassed. And you're actually pleased when someone asks you. It's like, oh, I'd love to help out because you know how awful it is when you've caught out yourself.
Yeah, and that's the whole point of Share the Dignity, because there isn't a chick you and I know that wouldn't give a pad or a tampon to somebody in the bathroom. And in actual fact, I'm hoping, from some of the stories that we see socially, that boys and men are having period products in their school bags and things to give to their friends should they need them, right? That's a changed world from when we went to school, right?
Oh, yeah. You had a wonderful guest talking about how her brother had products in his backpack. And I thought, what a cool brother that was. That's such a wonderful story.
So anyone who has taken a listen to, like you have, Megan's podcast, which was the last podcast, ADA Dental Health Foundation have stepped up and helped us to get a set of new choppers for Megan, which I hope that she just smiles with how proud she is of how far she's come.
That was almost, I guess, the mic drop moment. There's so much in that interview with Megan when she talked about, she's always been, such a confident person, and that domestic violence just changed her so much, and that abuse meant that she lost her teeth. And, that really is literally so powerful to hear, but to see that the impact that it had, that she, when she got her it's in the bag, it's that she felt valued, listened to, the little note, that she referred to, and the little toy bunny for her child. It's simple things, and that's what I love about this whole concept of it's in the bag. But yeah, for Megan, I'm just so thrilled, because as soon as she said that, I thought, you're not going to let that rest. I'm sure you'll get your contacts.
It took them 2 weeks to come back to me, and I was like every morning waiting for an email. But I think when charities work together, when people work together, incredible things can happen, and we have the ability to change the world for one person, right? And whoever gave that bag to Bunnings that we ended up being able to give to Megan changed the world for Megan. So that's the power of an It's in the Bag. So in your time as a councillor or the mayor, and you talk about advocacy as being one of your key roles, what was the thing that you're most proud of?
I'm a current councillor still, but no longer the mayor. So some of the things you're most proud of, it was a very short term, the previous term when I was mayor. Because of COVID, they sort of shrunk the term to then match the cycle. And you have these ideas, I was the 4th female mayor in this regional city, and it's like, wow, I'm going to lend my name to some really cool things and really try and make a difference in lots of different ways. You do get caught up in the busyness of council and meetings. You meet every week, you've got to read business papers, you have to, there's commitments. But a couple of things were really great. International Women's Day created a community event to really celebrate women from business, diversity, multicultural communities, even our staff, and got them together to really celebrate some of our volunteers and some of the great work. So I was able to get that done. When the Ukraine war broke out, I saw the Ukrainian ambassador speak at a conference in Canberra, and we have a big Ukrainian community in our region because of the Snowy River scheme. We had the Bonagilla Migrant Centre. A lot of them came in after the war, so there's a big Ukrainian community. So I invited him in partnership with Rotary, and sure enough, the Ukrainian ambassador came to our community, and I hosted a morning tea, and our community was so thankful because it was such a scary time, still is. So that was a lovely thing to do. And also reflecting when Councillor Ashley Edwards draw her attention to what Share the Dignity is all about, it's those little things that you can influence. Yes, there's big infrastructure decisions, and yes, there are things, but a lot of that takes time and effort, and you don't see that for a great period of time. But little wins, some of those things that you really hang your hat on, and certainly our council voting to install 5 of your vending machines in our community centres, it was a little win. It was something different.
That's a big win in our world, because you were the first council ever in Australia, actually in the world, to work towards menstrual equity without even knowing it. So I think it really set the framework for our Council Cares program, which is where we've written to every council in Australia and said, what does menstrual equity look like in your council area and to your constituents? So here are the figures based on our bloody big survey, which had 153,000 responses. So it's the biggest body of data the world's ever seen on menstruation, but also women's health, because menstruation is much more than just your period. It's about your health. So not having access to period products plays a role in how you turn up for work, how you participated in school when you had your period, right? How do you think you were concentrating when you had wadded up toilet paper instead of a pad or a tampon? Those sorts of things are so much more than just access to period products, right? So we have written to every council and said, we want you just have access to period products in a local area. So whether that's a library, whether it's a council pool, whether it's a community centre that you know works for your community, how do we also get you as a council to look at a sustainable options rebate? Because you know what, that's so good for so many things. One, that woman would never need to buy period products every month. So she'll never be without for about 5 to 10 years, right? It's also really good for your landfill, which most councils have an issue with in the first place, right? And then it's also good for the environment. It takes 100 years for a pad to break down. So if people are otherwise using menstrual cups or period undies, then that's a win for every council. So how do we encourage them to have that rebate option. And then we also asked for councils to help us educate their constituents. So we put together that 2-minute animation, which is non-verbal, and it explains menstruation. It explains also what you can wear while you've got your period and how, which is something that's never been out there. So, you know, we did that in line with 25 different ethnic groups in Australia to make sure that everybody could learn from that. And if we truly believe if every council shared that to their constituents, male and female where appropriate, then we have a better world where people know about menstruation and what to use. And that came to us because we were working with another charity who works with women who come in from a different country and they don't know how to swim. So in Australia, we have lots of water around us, right? And we have a lot of drownings when it comes to new settlers in Australia. And so she was saying, well, women are wearing like 3 and 4 pads to go swimming in our public pools because they don't know any different. So how is it on us and the council to actually educate, because it's in everybody's best interest, right? So council cares is really important to us, but that actually was led by your decision in Albury-Wodonga to place 5 vending machines in Albury-Wodonga to ensure that menstrual equity is rife.
I take my hat off to you in your bloody big survey, because we're always looking in local government, state and federal, as you'd know. It's all about the data. Where's the evidence? Where's the data to support the argument, to support the investment? And by having that survey, that was so good. So for us, we trialled it for 4 years. We're having these vending machines. So that was what we signed off on doing. And after 1 year, we're able to have the research that you've been able to provide for us, which highlighted that in our community, we're above the average on 3 of your indicators. You know, when people are asked as part of their menstruation, how have they been impacted, and affordability and losing time from school and losing time from work. So 3 out of, I think, your 4 indicators, 3 of them in Albury, it's above average. So
lead in Australia.
There you go. So that's wonderful. Okay, now we know there's a need. We've got the data to back it up. The other thing is the stories that you hear. So part of our research with our community centre vending machines, we talked about the multicultural community that you spoke of, and we have some of our multicultural community coming to a lot of our community centres, and our team is saying that it's sparking conversations. They're looking at the machines and they're going, what's that? What's it about? How can I access that? What do you mean? What do you do? So those conversation pieces, very important. And I guess that whole removing that shame and the dignity, which is what you're all about, you know, young people saying, you know, I couldn't afford it, but this was one way to access it. Together, you know, we can make a real difference. And I like your idea of hopefully by 2030 you won't need to exist. That, you know.
Absolutely. That is our goal. But we can't do it alone. This is a federal, this is a state, this is a council, this is every workplace, this is every sporting organisation. Yeah. It's how do we all work together for the same goal. And you know what? I really hope that when my granddaughter is 15, that she will think, what? Period products weren't always just around? Like, that's what we want, right? That's the world we're working towards.
You're doing a great job. Keep up the great work.
Bloody die trying, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So as the mayor or the now councillor, or actually just as a woman in your community, have you heard many stories of the impact of either the Dignity vending machines being installed or somebody who's received a bag in your community?
Yeah, I've heard some wonderful stories, and some of it is anecdotal and anonymous, but I have heard firsthand as well. I guess the young teenager that didn't have any money and was a bit embarrassed, very shy and introverted, so that was an opportunity for her to access some products. The migrant community that was very curious. Some of the women, they were like pointing at the machine, and there was this conversation that was sparked, so that was great to hear. And our community centre staff are so good at not just speaking to them, making them feel safe and warm, but sharing that information with myself as the mayor at the time and the community members as well. The only other feedback that I've had is, you know, from some people who've said, oh, you know, it would be great if it was open after 3 because, you know, you're at school and sometimes, you know, you want to get something after school, but the community centres are closed. So, you know, even that is helpful feedback as well. So, yes, it's great, but there's obviously more we can do. So watch this space, hopefully.
Absolutely. You know, we've got a real push to get every McDonald's in Australia to have a vending machine, just putting it out there, because everyone knows where their McDonald's is, right? And they're always open.
They're always open.
The aircon, they got free Wi-Fi. Why wouldn't you go there?
That's where the young people congregate.
Absolutely. But also so do families that have got shared custody of kids. There's a lot of drop over. There's a lot of connection in the community. And McDonald's do some great work in the community. So, you know, whether you like fast food or not, they do. They're never going anywhere. So why not use them to the best of their ability?
Yeah, I love that.
So what would you say to any other local councillors out there who would be sitting on the fence as to whether they think that this is important in their community? What would you say to them?
I'd say speak to your female councillors, elect a few more, or ask your daughters or your community members. Most councils have community plans and strategic plans, and you really set your programming and your investment for what sort of a community do you want to see, 20, 30 years from now. And in Albury's case, one of our real core pillars is a caring community. So any decision or investment that you can make as a councillor in your community that can drive a caring community amongst the other pillars, economic development and sustainability and all the rest, if decisions can and tie into that, well, you're partway there. Okay, this is a way to care for your community. And even if you dip your toe in the water and it's education, it's passing on information, you've got all the resources, you've done half the work. If that's all it is, then that's great. If it's getting your team in to the council staff and doing an information session with some of the staff members there, that's another tick. A trial, which is what we've done, so you dip your toe in the water that way. Trial one vending machine. There are so many ways to get involved. Just dip your toe in the water.
If I was in council and I know what I know, so I know that a girl's not getting an education because a family can't afford period products after 3, right? So now that there is access to period products in all schools, I think that bit shouldn't be so much of an issue, right? But what happens to her sisters who are in TAFE or universities, because there is such a big need in universities? We know that 25% of the girls, so 1 in 4 in university, cannot afford period products and are improvising. They're our future leaders, right? And yet they are having serious issues with being able to educate themselves and deal with their period at the same time. So not having access to period products can change the trajectory of a life of a woman working, going to school, playing sport, socialising. Where does that fit into a council's thought process, that piece? Because that's health, not just caring, is it?
And that's why caring community is such a broad pillar. Because, yes, how do you care? We care for those who are homeless. We care for those. I mean, we started a inland prevention drowning strategy because we're right on the Murray River and we've had some drowning, so we've had to intervene in that. So that's part of being a caring community. Food insecurity is another issue. There are so many ways that councils are almost that last piece of the puzzle because we're on the ground and we see it and they're our community and we're around it. So yeah, there are so many elements of caring for your community, and you're right, it's the university student, it's the TAFE, it's their personal stories, but it's a bigger piece than that because it's the economic contribution they might make to your city. It's, them giving back. We've got mental health issues as well and eating disorders. There are so many factors in communities that need love and attention and care. And there's challenges coming at us from everywhere, that's for sure.
I can well imagine. We've had some great uptake on councils coming on board for the sustainability option and offering the rebates on period products. But, out of 547 councils in Australia, I think there's 10 now, right? So we've got a long way to go. Because we launched Council Cares earlier this year, I'm wondering with the fact that it needs to be put into a budget for within, and maybe it's long-term stuff that we're just agitating to get there. So we've got a long way to go.
Another great tip, another time to do it is just after a council election or maybe during a council campaign. But when you get a new group of councillors in and, there's inductions and they're planning and they're looking for ideas on how to make an impact, that can be another way, following those election cycles of local councils in different states and really getting in with this new councillor group might be another.
Any introduction you've got to the New South Wales councillor group, I'm up for it. I think I'm speaking at a Victorian councillors group. It's really just getting into and of
Absolutely.
understanding what
Yeah.
are the barriers to a councillor saying, yep, this is what we're going to do.
Why those parameters are in place in a way is because, councillors could potentially campaign on X, Y, Z. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Well, at the end of the day, the councillor group has to vote on whatever it is you want to do. So, if a councillor says, I'm going to spend this much money on doing X, Y, Z, well, where's the money coming from? Here's our pie of budget of what's committed to in the next 4 years, what's going to miss out. Very much the role of a councillor group is long-term strategic thinking. So cogs don't always move real quick. So something of this nature, I think, would certainly be something that is achievable. Not all councils have the financial capacity, but I think there are certainly ways that they can get their foot in the door.
A vending machine can be sponsored by an RSL or a club where they may have more money, right, as well. So we're not saying it's all just on the council. It's like, how do you put women's needs at the forefront of your council area?
Perfect. And if I can be someone that can talk to other businesses and clubs in our community, well then that's on me as an ambassador, an extended ambassador for you, and share the dignity to talk about the data, the impacts, and we know the data's there, we know there's a need, and we've had great upkeep.
People always say, well, how much are you going to use? Well, we don't know, because what's the need in your area? I mean, in our perfect world, it would be accessible 18 hours of the day in a perfect world, but it's better than not being open at all, because we want people in the area to know that should they need them, they know where to go.
Spot on. And then they're aware and they see them, and it's the branding and it's the awareness, and it's why don't we have this at our workplace? Why don't we have this in our sporting club? Oh, I see the community centre down the road has this great idea. Why don't we do that?
Absolutely.
And it sparks those conversations.
Absolutely. Again, by 2030, we will be making sure that every council is on board, that every workplace is on board, that every sporting club, wherever you're playing sport, there will be access to period products, not just for the players, but potentially, like we were saying, mum's come out with the wrong handbag and she's sitting there on the sideline for 3 hours watching a kids play sport. Wouldn't you rather know that she's okay and she can just get period products in your bathroom than either go home and miss out on watching a kid's sport or stopping the kid being able to play sport?
Yeah. When you put it like that, it's a no-brainer, really.
It is. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on another bloody podcast. I appreciate you.
Oh, well done. Those tentacles are spread far and wide. Keep up the great work, and if I can support where I can, I'm always here.
Thank you.